Yeah.
It's been worked up in the divine sort of thing. We're scheduled to go. Is that what it was? Service.
She'll say something.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm sure it's something divine.
And actually, so like she'll be like, and it's like recording from the PowerPoint itself. So she'll press the button, it's up there.
You know, I don't think a pillow is a spot saver, so hers are jacket, yeah, but I would say, you know, it's available. Somebody probably used to use it, like
I got that too. That's another thing. Wait, watch every episode.
I think that's a great idea.
Is this your
Oh, it's hard. I probably did go there and surprise. So I don't want to tell her that. I like the idea. I'm going to send her a whole box. You know, that's the other thing, and I just kind of like, you know, I can do that. My
Is that what they did? I had to.
That's great.
My autobiography. Oh God, no. I'd say best part.
Still.
I probably won't make one kind of I like to say the fact that, hey, you know,
Hey sir, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Wonderful. Recovered? You recovered? Sort of. Morning.
Is your mom here?
oh, you do.
What are you doing in this kid?
We were, and they canceled it.
We got the draft.
Is he looking for me?
They have like big spotlights and writing gold. They should have done that Friday night.
Yes.
Sorry, my mom wanted that for me. And I think she does yet. Okay, thank you.
Well, I kind of backed off of a little bit. Thank you, my love.
I mean, that's
They're all black.
I had all black. Yeah, yeah. You got this. Actually, I do have a job.
Torrin, keep this right here and don't forget to take it with us on an Indiana. It's in my portfolio. Yeah, just as long as it doesn't get left here.
I do the video. She's she usually does that.
Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place. If you can, reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place. If we can, reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place. If we can, reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place. I know we
Good morning. How is everyone this fine October morning? Welcome to Unity of Music City, a place where we do authentic transformation. That is who we are. That's what we are all about. From the moment you walk in the door to the moment you leave. The coffee alone can do that for you. Some mornings. Are we ever so glad to have Judy and Denise back in our presence this week? We love when you get the opportunity to have a break, but we love when you come back even more. So we're so glad that they are back here. We're also really, really glad to have a special music guest today, Nancy Deckant, and her good friend Wren Williams is sitting right next to her. And you're going to want to hear them sing. They have some great songs. Wren's got a couple of CDs that'll be available out in the lobby after the service, so please stop by and see those folks afterwards and hug their neck. Just a few quick announcements today. This afternoon there is a workshop with John Martin's Feelings and Emotions. Develop emotional resilience and intimacy by looking at feelings and emotions in a new way. If you got any kind of stuff around feelings and emotions, let me erase that. If you are human, you may benefit from this workshop this afternoon from 2 to 5. This Thursday, October 19th, Susie Wright, Mediumship and Intuitive Development. It's the second in a series of 6. This is Thursday night from 7 to 9, and if you've ever been in a workshop with Susie, you know that that is a wonderful and transformative experience in and of itself. A couple of things coming up later in October. Saturday, October 21st. I'm going to keep saying this till it's passed. Circulation Day. So the week preceding that, the Namaste Cafe will be closed, where we store all of our good stuff. If you want to be a part of the solution on that and help out, I'm sure Crystal Lyles would be happy for you to tell her that.
Yes.
And then finally, Friday, October 27th, this is a little ways off, but I want to put it on your calendar. Spirituality Unplugged with Frank Castellano from 6:30 to 9. That's a potluck, so bring a dish to share. Bring your burning spiritual questions. If they're just simmering, you may bring those as well. But those are always an exciting time with Frank, so put that on your calendar for Friday, October 27th. Let's stand and sing again, shall we? Seems like the thing to do.
We all
you, I wrote it. I'm just kidding. In case you didn't know, I'm just kidding. A few more quick announcements for you. You know, every week we announce a lot of the ways that we are being a force for good in the community and the items that we are collecting for the different organizations that we work with, the food pantry over at Dodson Chapel United Methodist Church, and the senior dogs, senior center, whatever it is, assisted living for dogs, and the teacher's lounge at Pennington Elementary School. And I'll tell you what, I often give you a list of things that you need, but what we're going to start doing in the future, maybe mentioning a few things like snacks and coffee and tea. We're also going to be collecting coats and sweaters, hats, gloves, and mittens for adults and children for the food pantry coming up for the fall. But from now on, we're going to try to have some lists on the back wall of specific needs. You can always see Linda Wanamaker or any one of her team. Oh, who's on that team? Raise your hand. Oh yeah, we got several people. You can always see one of those folks if you want to know a specific need that we have. Coming up this week, we have Lunch Bunch, of course, Wednesdays at 11:30. That group is studying The Hope, A Guide to Sacred Activism by Andrew Harvey. And I always refer to those people as the ones who will change the world, because they will. And so will you, and so will all of us. But those folks will lead the way. Wednesday night, we have Wednesday evening class, which we've just started a new group last Wednesday. It is the Peace Circles. It is where we come together, and Reverend Denise and Becky Astorita facilitate peace circles. I believe you had about 15 or 16 people there this past week. Those are always a powerful experience if you want to join in and find peace. The way that we make peace in the world is we make peace one person at a time, and one group, and one circle, and one sacred community, and one larger community. So please join us for that. And then finally, just a quick mention, if you've been listening to all of this and you don't at this point think that we're completely crazy, you may have considered the possibility of joining Unity of Music City as a full-blown, by God, bona fide member. And if you want to do that, I highly encourage it. It takes your spiritual development and authentic transformation up yet another notch to commit to a spiritual community. So there will be a new member class on October 29th, immediately following the service. And so Sharon Duffy is sitting right there. If you're interested in that, if you're not sure, if you're a hanger-on, if you want to sit back and look, but you need some information, talk to Sharon. She'll be happy to share that with you. B?
Good morning. Good morning. Would the other prayer chaplains please stand? Just a reminder that the prayer chaplains are here to pray with you, and there will be a prayer chaplain in the prayer room after the service if you would like prayer at that time. Thank you. Today's affirmation: remembering our oneness with all creation, we awaken the world to infinite possibilities. Say it with me. Remembering our oneness with all creation, we awaken the world to infinite possibilities. To create more peace within my life and my world, I must be peace by thinking peace-filled thoughts, which will lead me to feel peace within my body. I experience this peace first by restoring oneness within my mind, my heart, and my gut. Ah, the feeling of peace fills every cell in my body. This experience of peace is the oneness, is the ancient, original, and central beat of all creation. When I resonate with that beat, my heart begins to swell again with the common strength of love, joy, and peace, the one beat of everything alive. Sharing a common beat does not mean that everything is the same, but many things become infinite in how they differ. Opening to the richness of life, we can begin to value everything. So we begin to see, hear, and feel the 10,000 things we meet today by holding them in the light of our heart. Then we say, Remember, I remember my oneness with you. Remember, I remember my oneness with you.
And so I ask that you just settle into your seats and focus on your breath. And as you focus on your breath, this morning we are remembering. Remembering that oneness that starts inside of each of us. And so when you're ready, take that 18-inch journey from your head to your heart. And as you drop into your heart space, just feel that sense of, oh, I remember. I remember that place inside of me that connects me to everything, to everyone. That place where, yes, I can go. I remember. I remember my oneness. I remember it first within me. And then as I look out into my world and I see other people and animals and plants and situations, I again can say, I remember. I remember my oneness. Because oneness has a beat. It has a rhythm. It has a heart. And so today, as we go into the silence, we are going to go into the silence with a heartbeat. And I just ask that you resonate with that heartbeat as one community together. In the silence. In the silence. Remember. I remember my oneness with you. And I pass that oneness to everyone that I meet.
I want to that always sustains me. Lord, help me pass on the road. This gift of the Holy Spirit that ever
Hey everybody. Oh gosh. All right. This is my wonderful friend Wren Williams. We've been writing songs together for quite some time, and we wanted to share this song with you today. And we're just so thankful that Unity would have us here. Thank you, Judy, for asking us. And so let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Should I go for it? Do I try? Do I let it die? So much that I need that I don't have. Go and play out of cash. I can't see a path. Oh, in a still small voice within me says, I'll be who you let me be. How do the rivers run? How deep do the oceans go? How does the earth move around the sun? How do flowers grow? Is that what you do see? Is made from what you can't see? Don't you think I can give you everything, everything you need? Listen, I heard every prayer you prayed. There's a plan for you that I laid. Be not be dismayed. When the climb is too hard for you, next step's too hard to do. I know how to get you through. How wide do the rivers run? How deep do the oceans go? How does the earth move around the sun? How do flowers grow? If that's what you do see, it's made from what you can't see. Don't you think I can give you what you do see. It's making what you can't see. Don't you think I can give you everything, everything you need? How deep do the oceans go? How does the earth move around the sun? How do flowers grow? In fact, what you do see is making what you can't see. Don't you think I can give you everything, everything you need? I can give you everything, everything you need. I can give you everything, everything you need. All of your issues, all of your problems, God can take care of them. I can give you everything, everything you need. Your worries, your concerns, your stress, your anxiety, your concerns. I can give you everything, everything you need. If you just cast thy cares on him. Thank you.
Woohoo! Do you believe that? If that what you do see is making what you can't, don't you think I can give you everything you need? Did you hear those words? Because sometimes we get so caught up in what we think we see, and we forget that what we don't see is beneath the surface, making its way to us. But we're so focused on what we do see, we can't let the things that we don't see come through. I want to first say thank you to Deb. I got to watch it live on a balcony and at the river, and it was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I don't know if you all know, but if you're not here on Sunday morning, it's live streaming now, and it's perfect. It's beautiful. You can watch the whole thing. And so it was awesome to be sitting and watch everything go on. And I know you thank Julie Rust for coming and being a part of all of this. I know it was an awesome day. When I left last week, we left Moses standing in front of a burning bush. And I told you we were going to break his life up into 3 segments that were going to help us understand how to listen to Holy Spirit and know what is ours to do. And I'm impressed that you came back. It's like, oh my. Because today's lesson is about beyond us and them. Because I want you to think about Moses, those of you who've ever studied his life, and you know what God called him to go do. Into a situation that could have seemed very adversarial, to say the least. And he had to be willing to step into the middle of that and look beyond what he saw to what can be created in any situation. Exactly what they were singing about this morning. So, we talked a little bit before I left about what sacred activism is, because whether or not you are specifically involved, this church, this spiritual community is moving out into the world. We're doing all kinds of things. There were yesterday, I know Bea and Linda, anybody else here, a part of the, Crystal was there, a part of the food pantry at Dodson Chapel Memorial, Methodist, whatever they're called, I don't know. Something, we're all one, but they have a different name than we do. How's that? But we had some people there yesterday. We have people doing all kinds of things out in the community that you may be aware of or not be aware of. But when we studied the Hope on Wednesday with Lunch Bunch, we started talking about what is really sacred activism. What are we going for this last quarter? Sacred activism is action performed in concert with the sacred. I want you to think about what does that look like in your world. Action that you perform in concert or connection with the sacred. The introduction to the Hope is written by Carolyn Meese. Most of you that are in here at least have heard her name if you've not read any of her stuff. And she says, every action, when done with consciousness of the sacred, adds to the healing of the whole life system. You hear that? That when I set the intention that the action I'm about to make is sacred, that then it not only affects the people that I'm doing it with, but it affects me. It affects the whole life system. Breathe into that. Every action, when done with consciousness of the sacred, adds to the healing of the whole life system. When I heard that, when I started reading that, and I read the Hope in 2009 when it first came out, I went, wow, this is huge. And this is what came from that. I can become an active agent of change. Say that with me. I can become an active agent of change. What I heard was some people really said that. And I heard some people go, I can become a... Hence the issue of doing sacred activism. Because when I step my toe out in the water, I become responsible for my actions on a big level. It's much easier to sit on my couch at home and ohm. But the minute I step out into the world, then I start putting ripples out there. Does that make sense? Just like I would throw a rock out into the river or a lake or whatever, and it puts ripples out. When I step out there and start doing something in the world, I start making a change in what's going on out there. And sometimes that can be a little scary. This is why I am pushing this. I've had a few people say, Reverend Denise, why are you so adamant that we become a force for good? Has anybody looked at the news lately? Has anybody read any random tweets or Facebook posts or anything and gone, dear God, what's going on out there in the world? We are sitting at the edge. And that song could not have been any more perfect this morning for this lesson, because what we see sometimes is overwhelming. What we see sometimes in the news is daunting. And I know that some of us in New Thought would like to just sit in our homes on our couches at home. This weekend, Carolyn Bauer and I, where is Carolyn? She's in here somewhere, spent the day on Saturday at a conference that was about climate change. It was about creation care. It was 150 plus ministers, lay leaders from churches. And you know, Carolyn is the ministry lead of the Love the Land ministry here. And we heard an Episcopal priest by the name of Fletcher Harper, who said to the planning committee Friday night when we were eating dinner with him, and he said it again at least twice when he was speaking, that we can no longer sit and be silent. Can you hear that? There are things going on out in our world that we have to take a stand for. And that's scary. I can't tell you what those things are. Your heart has to tell you. But whatever you see that you can't see what God's doing up underneath, that's probably the thing. And what I will tell you is that's usually the scariest place inside of you. Because you look at it as something so huge that it's a big mess, and you can't see what God is really wanting to do through you. Through who? Through you. Not through me. I'm going to see what I see. Not through Judy. Not through Deb. But through you. If you spot it, guess what? It's yours. You got it. It's yours to do something with. So do you understand that you can't really see what's going to happen? And that's why it's a little bit daunting to some of us. We would much rather come in here and sit in a circle and meditate than actually step out into that going, I have no idea what I'm stepping out into the middle of. So here's Moses, where we left him. And he was told, take your shoes off, because this is holy ground. You need to connect to the earth. You need to become one with everything you see. You need to become one with yourself. You need to be one with all creation. And when you become one, then the things that bother you, that cause that rub, you'll go, ooh, that's mine. The story of Moses is a metaphysical story. And so I'm going to give you a little something about the way I interpret it, but know that you can always interpret the story in your own way. That's what unity is all about. But to me, as he got quiet, he heard within himself that it is for me to go to Egypt and set the people free. That seems huge. But what is the message that you hear when you get quiet? And if you remember when I was here last, he argued with God. He said, no, it's not mine to do. Whether you want to say you're arguing with God or you're arguing with yourself. Nope, it's not mine to do. He said, I can't speak well. If you remember in the story in the Bible, every argument he came up with, God had a counter. Yeah, I can't speak well. Well, your brother Aaron can go with you. Well, I can't do blah, blah, blah. Well, we'll take care of that. Do you remember what they sang just a minute? I can give you what? Everything you need. Say that. Everything you need. Everything you need is going to be provided once you step out and say yes. See those words up there on the piano? Once you step out and say yes. But I know that there are some of us in here, because I can feel your energy, that are like right this. No, 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 no. Yes, I've heard the voice, but no. So the first step is remembering your oneness. You have to feel it inside yourself. If you listen to the words that Bea read this morning, I wrote those. It's like, can I remember oneness and peace inside me? Because if I can't, I definitely don't need to step out. Because when I step out, I'm causing ripples, right? So if I step out with skank, what am I going to cause? Skank out in the world. Yes, I've got to get aligned with love and joy and peace before I step out there, knowing that it's mine to do. So what do you see in the upper left-hand corner? So I will ask you in this moment, and some of you probably are sitting here because I know some of you rather well, you know what is yours to do. You know it, as well as you know the back of your hand. But that's what's going on. You're afraid. For some reason. And when we have fear well up inside of us, we have a physiological thing that begins to happen, and we either flee or fight. You ever felt that? It's a stress response. It's like, okay, I'm afraid, and I'm going to run away. Or I'm afraid and I'm going to fight people. That's a normal response that we give until we learn a different way. One of the different ways that Holy Spirit was attempting to show Moses is transform your fear into what? Do something. Do something, because if I stand in this place and I'm afraid, guess what? I'm just going to stay being afraid. So you got to shift your energy. Do something to move yourself beyond that place of fear. Well, look what Moses did, and I specifically found a Charlton Heston. You could relate to that very well. So here's Moses, and he's in the front of Pharaoh. I don't imagine that he was going yay rah tootie at all. Because what he knew in that moment is that what I am asking of this man, he is not going to want to say yes. Have you ever known deep in your beingness that you had to ask somebody for something and they were not going to want to say yes? How does that feel? Horrible. Yes. What about, have you ever had to ask somebody for something knowing that if they did not say yes, it was going to affect a whole lot of other people too? That's what this is about. This is about taking a stand for another group of people other than just yourself and saying, I'm sorry, this is not okay, you've got to blah, 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 blah. So I want you to think for a second, and I'm going to let you talk to someone close to you about an issue that might be going on out in the world right now that you have some passion about, that you know that somebody, dear God, should take a stand and go say something to somebody. You know, I could go on and on about everything we talked about yesterday at the conference, Carolyn. It's like somebody needs to say something to people in Nashville about pollution and about trash and about blah, 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 blah. And it's like, who's going to do that? Well, let's let Carolyn do that. Well, no, because if it's up in me, it's mine to do. Does that make sense? So talk to somebody near you and talk to them about, for a few minutes, about some sort of an issue that you know is up that's kind of bothering you right now in your beings. Go. Now, when I will tell you that I observed from up here, the energy level just went way up high. Because I said, talk about something that you have some passion about. Now I want to give you a little bit more metaphysical interpretation of this story. Pharaoh represents our ego. Oh. Ego and the struggle that we have with spirit inside us that stands in the way of what is ours to do. You know it. Most of you are very familiar with that place inside of you that says no, no, no. You're saying, I desire to move forward, but it's not as easy as I thought, and I have to let go of, I don't know what your answer would be. And you're afraid to. Because when you let go of that, you remember the man sitting on the edge with the clouds out there? That's what it looks like to you right now. You can't see. And you don't believe that God, Holy Spirit, is going to provide you everything you need. We come in here on Sunday morning and we go, we're new thoughts. And we got this. We believe we're all one. And I've meditated every day this week, and I've got this. Until that fear comes up from my gut and goes, I know this is mine to do. But I'm afraid. And I'm not willing to let go of a little smidgen of that fear because I don't know what that looks like. I don't have a clue. And so then I don't know how many of you went to Sunday school. I did. And one of the interesting lessons that I remembered in Sunday school were the 10 plagues that got to happen to Pharaoh and his people because he did not say yes. You remember those? And I was like, metaphysically, what in this world? The plagues are manifestations caused in my world by immature and negative thinking. Wow. Anybody had any immature or negative thinking? No, not us. Sure. Today, in the last 5 seconds. The number 10 means that you have completed the cycle and that you're going back to the beginning. It's divine order. Okay? So let me just give you a little hint around here. And this is not you doing metaphysical malpractice. It's you understanding that sometimes you create worse things in your life because you say no to spirit. Because you say no, not doing that. Remember the water to blood? Think about what would happen if you did not have any of the source of life that water brings. It was all just nasty. There were frogs. I'm not talking about a few little frogs jumping around. I'm talking about frogs on everything. Can you imagine? And then there was lice. Ooh, Lord, any of you ever had kids that had head lice and you had to deal with your whole house? And I remember going into both the School for the Blind and Pennington and them coming to me and going, we have head lice in room 202. And I was like, I ain't going in there. Flies. You ever tried to have a picnic and had flies on your food? What if flies were all over your house, all over everything that you had? So even those three things are about the negative thoughts that we have are covering up everything that we see and we can't see beyond it. Does that make sense? Do you remember the song? If that what you do see is making what you can't, don't you think I can give you everything you need? But all you're seeing when you're dealing with your fears is frogs and lice and bugs and nastiness, flies, all over everything. It's your thoughts. It's your thoughts. that's covering up everything that you want. Well, that's icky. Well, then we get down to boils. Didn't that sound lovely? Because some of us, and I will be honest, some of us create dis-ease in our bodies when we hang out in fear. If you've ever read any of Myrtle and Charles Fillmore, they call it chemicalization. When you hang out in stress, even if you want to deal with a medical model, it can affect your health. So if you just hang out in this fear and you never ever say yes to spirit, you may get sick. Then we have hail. I'm not talking about H-E-L-L. I'm talking about H-A-I-L. And this one is kind of up close and personal because you have all this weather stuff that you're not expecting to happen. Chaos starts consuming your world in many, many different ways. And you're like, what is all this about? Just because I didn't say yes. Locusts. Lord. Anybody ever been around when the locusts come? It's like, run fast, get out, get in the car, get into the next place, close the door. And then the next plague was darkness. That represents deep depression, which I have seen many times over the years being a minister. And most of the time, about 75 to 80% of the time, it is cued into someone not living their purpose. And they're just down in the depths of despair because they've not stepped in and said yes to what is trying to be birthed within them. And then the last one is very interesting, the death of the firstborn. That's not about a child. That's about the dream that they were singing about. The dream that you had probably when you were a child. It's been inside you all of your life. It's what you came here to do. And it's dying because you didn't say yes. Now is everybody depressed and sad? Think about all of that went on. And Moses had to stand in all of that, knowing that partly he was going to have to deal with all this. It's the chaos that he walked into when he said yes to this. He said, yes, I will be a force for good here, and I will see that these people get released. And look what he got to experience. You want to know why people don't say yes? Because they know that if they step into something, they may have to experience something a little bit unpleasant in the beginning. And so then they go, no, I don't want to do that. There's nobody breathing. The change has to happen first inside your own consciousness. You have to believe what you heard them sing about this morning. You have to know that the reason that you're being called into such a place is for such a time as this. The Esther story. Some of you know that. Some of us are being called up really, really high right now in our world to be brave. In ways that we have never, ever believed that we could be brave. But what I want to tell you is if you're sitting here right now, Holy Spirit has tapped you on the shoulder, or you wouldn't be sitting here listening to this and said, it's time for you. And some of you are just going, time for me for what? To first shift your own consciousness and know that you are here for a reason. And as Fletcher Harper said, and I've heard a few other people, Marianne Williamson, Carolyn Me say, some of us that are 50 and over never thought we would have to see what's going on out in the world right now. Never thought. And so we thought we were just going to breeze through the rest of our lives. And Spirit is going, hey, hey, hey. You're it. Somebody's got to be it. So you have to be peace first. Take off your shoes. You're on holy ground. Feel the earth. Feel the peace. Feel the oneness. And until you can feel that, you can't think peace, you can't feel peace, and you definitely can't speak any peace out in any groups of any people. You have to get there first. You have to do your work. If you're not sure that you can do that, 15 brave souls showed up on Wednesday night. And we had people say things in the circle that everybody didn't always agree with. And nobody killed each other, did we? We did great. Yay. It was awesome. This is our work, people. To be able to sit with people that don't agree with us. It's easy in here. And I promise you there's somebody in here that would not agree with you right now if you spoke out your deepest, darkest truth. But can we really sit and share? Because what I see out in the world as your minister is that's what's wrong. Is that there's this group of people going, and this group of people going, and this group of people going, and somebody has got to start bringing them together. Somebody. We'll let Becky Astorita do it, right? Yeah, somebody. But what I also know is where you work, there's stuff like that going on, and somebody. In the Chamber of Commerce, there's stuff going on, and somebody's going to have to do that. I'm going to have to sit with some people that disagree. Dear God, did I sign up for that? Obviously. I didn't know I did. I didn't know I said yes. Today, may we choose peace over chaos, respect over belittling, thoughtfulness over reaction, faith over fear, and some of you are going to push back on this, others over ourselves. Now, hear me. I'm going to explain that a little bit. Because I know in New Thought, we're all about just getting okay with me. But at some point in time, you have to put the focus on this out here if you're going to make a change in it. So you have to have a balance. I've had to focus on me for an hour or two, or some of us need to focus on ourselves for a week before we ever get out there. You know what I mean? It's like, let me have a week of aligning me with me before I get out there in the world. But at some point in time, I have to put the well-being of these people over me for that moment and sit and listen to what's going on. Is that not what happens when you go to the food pantry, Linda, B, Crystal, you were there yesterday? You had to put their well-being over yours. When we become a force for good out in the world, we put the well-being of another individual. John Martins is sitting back there. I know that you have to sometimes put your client's interest over yours in a moment when you're working with somebody. That's part of the deal. In New Thought, we have too long gone, I'm going to be okay with me. It's about the other people too. Remembering our oneness with who? All creation. Some of you said it and some of you went, Rrr. All creation. So, we asked this at the Peace Circle. When do I feel free? Well, that was fun, and people just talked and talked and talked and talked and talked and talked and talked. That was wonderful. And then we asked this one. People didn't enjoy that one as much. You know when you feel imprisoned? When you don't say yes. When you are afraid. And then we asked this question and people shut up. Some of them wouldn't talk at all. Because they knew inside their heart that they would rather be imprisoned than be free, because there's responsibility when you're free. And I can just be imprisoned in my fear and hang out here for the rest of my life, and I'm used to that. I know what that feels like. You have been a prisoner of a little pond. I am the ocean and its turbulent flood. Come merge with me. Leave this world of ignorance and be with me. I will open the gate to your love. Namaste.
Unity, I just wanted to thank you. I'm honored to be your guest. Thank you, Pastor.
We are so honored to have you.
Denise, you all just been so loving and welcoming. I appreciate you so much. This wonderful lady has been such an inspiration. She actually inspired me into doing more songwriting. And so we got one more song, and it's called Eyes of Faith.
Before we do this, Cedric,
Okay.
I just want to say this one thing about, I should have said this before Eyes of Faith, but okay, I'm saying it now. On the day when Cedric and Brandon and I wrote Eyes of Faith, Cedric came into the writing room and he said, you know, I'd love to be an artist, but I'm afraid I can't do it. And was like, oh, okay. And we wrote Eyes of Faith. You know. Right. And I says, you're going to be going around to churches and singing your song and inspiring people. And when we sat, right, this is our first church. And I said, sitting right over there, I said to Cedric, welcome to your future.
And yours too.
That's right.
You know, I appreciate you. You know,
It's like I'm not getting out of this one.
you pushed me. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I appreciate the love.
with a voice like this, you would not letting this guy just hang around and drive Uber the rest of his life.
Now you tell it every time, huh? I'm just messing with you.
We're going to do the song we wrote with Brandon called Eyes of Faith.
Yes.
Oh, 1, 2, 3.
Put your hands together. Prisoner of my own will. There's a void inside that I cannot feel. I keep on fighting what I'm fighting for. I suffer blindly until you find me. Praise you in the thunder, through the wind and rain. Show your signs and wonders until I see your face. I keep my eyes and faith on you. Praise you in the storm, praise you in the thunder, through the wind and rain. Show your signs and wonders until I see your face. I keep my eyes and faith on you. Keep my eyes and faith on you. Keep my eyes and faith on you. Until I see your face, I'll keep my eyes and faith on you. Listen, I can't calm this hurricane I made. One word from you and it's a brand new day. To you, in my weakness, your strength is shining through. Praise you in the storm, praise you in the thunder, through the wind and rain. Show your signs and wonders until I see your face. And keep my eyes and faith on you. Praise you in the storm, praise you in the thunder. darkness into light, until it's a light upon light. Light upon light. Our wounds are healed by your stripes. Touch every broken heart that cries. Let the scales fall from our eyes. Turn from things tangled up inside. Turn from darkness into light, until it's a light upon light. Light upon light. Our wounds are healed by your stripes. Touch every broken heart that cries. Let the scales fall from our eyes. Praise you in the storm. Praise you in the thunder. Through the wind and rain. Show me signs and wonders until I see your face. I keep my eyes of faith on you. Yeah. Praise you in the storm, praise you in the thunder, through the wind and rain. Show me signs and wonders until I see your face. Until my eyes are fixed on you. Keep my eyes of faith on you. Keep my eyes of faith on you. Until I see your face, I keep my eyes of faith on you. See your face, keep my eyes of faith on you. One more time. Keep my eyes of faith on you. Keep my eyes of faith on you. Until I see your face, I keep my eyes of faith on you.
Myself the rest of the afternoon. Da, 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 keep my eyes of faith on you. That's an earworm you've gotten right there. It's that wonderful time when we have the opportunity to give back to our sacred community. If you will take your tithes and gifts and offerings in your hand and say the sacred affirmation with me. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. Please join us on the sacred walk of abundance.
So we open our hands and our hearts and our minds, affirming, yes, I will be a force for good in this world. I will remember I am one with you. And I will remember again, I am one with you. And as I remember my oneness, and I remember love and joy and peace, knowing that those are the ripples that are going out into all of creation. They will come back to me, heaped up, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. For that's the law, and so it is. Amen.
And remembering our oneness with all creation, Voices of Unity will be going this afternoon to sing at the Corinthian Baptist Church. Our partners through Reverend D and Reverend Enoch Fuzz. So if you are in Voices, remember to stick around right afterwards for a quick rehearsal. And so we'll all together rehearse this song now. Let's stand and join hands and sing.